Hello, this is Vivian again, and this is a continuation of what I've been learning about making country wine. And country wine is basically any fruit, or non-fruit for that matter, sugar, water, and yeast. I'm even using bread yeast. I've been told multiple times in a winemaking group that wine yeast, champagne yeast are not expensive. They're right. It's not very expensive. It's expensive compared to bread yeast. Bread yeast is even cheaper and it's more readily available. And I may want to get into that. I know that I was told that with bread yeast it should not get up above 7% alcohol, but I am willing to bet that some of my wines have gone above 7% alcohol. And I can't tell that because I did not take a measurement with the hydrometer when I first started, because I didn't have a hydrometer when I first started. In fact, where is my hydrometer? I've created this little space up here, and I was going to do this for canning, and it is partially for canning stuff, but also wine stuff. So I've been saving wine bottles, and but like I went ahead and this is peach wine that I made, and it's probably ready to bottle, but I don't have the bottles to do that. It can sit what's called bulk aging when you have it in a big container like this. This is a 3-gallon bottle, and if you notice, there's marbles at the bottom so that there's very little headspace here. Air and sun. That's why all my carboys jugs are wearing t-shirts. This is an apple wine. It's not cleared, but I don't need to. I was thinking about I need to go ahead and re-rack it. Just, use a siphon and put it down into another one. This was the first bottling of the first batch that I made. And I don't know how well it's going to show up in this light, but if you see that the last 2 bottles, 1 gallon will fill up 5 of the regular 750 milliliter bottles of wine. And this is a 750 milliliter bottle. And the 14th and 15th bottle I filled from the carboy had the sediment, which is also called lees or gross lees. And the first batch, first container you have this in. And that's what settles out when the sugar and the yeast come together. This one, see, I need to go ahead and redo this one. And some people wait till it's 1 inch or 2 inches to transfer them to another container. I still have a couple of muscadines, 2 peaches, the apple, a plum apple, and another 5-gallon plum. So, like the very last bit of the peaches, I went ahead and poured into another container instead of just putting it all down the drain to see how much was left in there. This is from the 3-gallon plum wine that I went ahead and bottled up. And that's what was left at the bottom. Different experiments. This is some more of the peach that when I made it in the buckets there was extra. There was more left. So I hadn't really bottled or messed with them too much. And the same goes over here. I've got everything labeled, or most everything labeled. Plums when I went ahead and redid them. So this stuff needs to be drunk first. Just taken care of, just be done. This learning a lot, but I'm so glad I bought these. Normally there's 15 in these boxes of the Pellegrino, and there's 750 milliliter bottles. So I was able to These are the ones I filled up. Got a wedding to go to. Labels come off fairly easy. That bottom box is filled with 2 different batches of muscadine wine. This still has the actual Pellegrino in them. Of course, these upside down. Oops, can you see it? Dark in here. Get back over here. But I turn them upside down, put them back into the container boxes so that I know where they are. But this side is actual wine. And the last batch I've been working on, and it's still foaming, because I thought the yeast was dead, so I added more yeast. And what it needed was warmth. So it's still 2 weeks later, foaming like crazy. It's not airlocked because it still needs to what's called a primary fermenting. I could have left it in the bucket, but this way it's a little bit safer from fruit flies. Fruit flies are the worst thing that can happen to your wine. It will turn it into the worst vinegar, unusable vinegar. So this is from my failed batches. I had like 20-something half pints of corncob jelly that did not set. So I'm supposed to use a pectin enzyme, especially with wines like apple, that's high, any sort of fruit that's high in pectin. A lot of yeast recipes, wine recipes, call for using pectin enzyme and yeast nutrients and potassium metabosulfite and K-meta for short, and different stuff to do different processes of killing off anything that's alive, any bacteria or other wild yeast that might be in the fruit. And then you do it at different stages too to stop any yeast activity when it gets to the point you like it. What I've learned, I'm trying to keep it very simple. I'm trying not to buy the other stuff. It's not so much it's unavailable. I can get on Amazon and order all that stuff. I'm trying to keep it very simple. I know some people who can't enjoy wine. They're not sure exactly what sets them off, and it's probably some of those chemicals. It may be the alcohol, but until you try it without any of those ingredients. You can buy juice, and some of those juices will have that K-meta stuff in there because it just kills off anything alive, any sort of bacteria, any sort of yeast in the juice. But while I had corn, I made some more corn cob juice. So I can add this in there. So when I siphon this over into one of these with an airlock on it, I can fill it up. I've got several cans of this so that the flavor doesn't get watered down by adding water or having to put more marbles. And that keeps it topped off so that the headspace, this is a 5-gallon container because I just wanted to shake this in there. So I just give this a shake a couple of times a day. Just kind of stir it up. But this is my only non-fruit wine, and I'm thinking about playing with some cranberry sauce jelly that I've got and reheating that, watering it down and trying to make some cranberry wine. Because I made some punch with cranberry and apple and pineapple, and it turned out really good. So I'm having fun learning. I am still very much a noob. So when my daughter came over to get some wine, she wanted some plum wine. And I only had bottled muscadine wine. So I went ahead and took the small container, the smallest, the 3-gallon plum wine that I had, and took a hydrometer reading. The hydrometer reading, and normally when it gets to 1 or 0.999, it's done. There's no sugar left in the liquid. It's all been converted by the yeast. It doesn't mean the yeast is dead. It just means that they're done with the what they're doing, converting all that sugar. So at that point, it's a very dry wine. The muscadines that I bottled were at 1.022 and 1.018, which is still a little bit on the dry side, but not it's very, very slightly sweet, which were, I bottled it at that point. Because I didn't use any of those chemicals to stop the yeast from converting more, this apple is still, yeah, this apple is still going. And a lot of times what I did was I waited till it quit pushing any of this. It just kind of went level. And all of these are bubbling at a very, very slow rate now. So this is still the most active, but it's still taking more than a minute between bubbles. But when she tried the plum wine, it was a little tart for her, so I put a little bit of the syrup. And I need to make more syrup because it's getting low. And it's called back sweetening. This is 2 parts sugar to 1 part water. So this is a very thick syrup. So I put 2 ounces in each of her bottles. Put 2 ounces in the bottle and then put the wine into it. And that gave her just the right type of sweetening. Doing that could cause the yeast to reactivate. So it needs to be refrigerated or drunk in it was supposed to be drunk that night, so that's like not a problem. So that's called back sweetening. I did not back sweeten any of the wines that I'm going to take to a wedding this weekend. So I got 15 bottles ready to go for that, just muscadine wine. I'd like to play with some more, take some plum if that's possible, which should be, because I went ahead the rest of that because I'm out of enough of those wine bottles. I went ahead and filled up 2 1-gallon and 1/2 gallon with the plum wine. And this is how I label. Plum, I've got like 3 different batches, so that there's a batch number. This one had an SG of 1 when I bottled it, and the date that I bottled it. So, and I also, when I actually do the bottling, I didn't label hers because she's just going to take 2 bottles home, and she didn't really care about any of this other information, so I didn't do the labels on hers. I may at some time actually do labels. That will require getting my printer back up and getting some proper paper and stuff. But I had these. These are $100 to less than $2 for 100 of these, and I can reuse them. And I don't have to worry about washing them off. I did retie another knot so that's not so big, because this whole thing will just slide over the whole bottle and fall down. So this way it wasn't going to do that. And this is the 15th bottle out of that batch. And 14 and 15, like I told you earlier, had the lees in them. Thought I'd share my winemaking notebooks. Trying to keep everything together, and the notebooks stay in this little thing. I like using the index cards, the 4x6s, instead of having a whole notebook, because I've had to rewrite this and shuffle pages around. This is the basic steps that I saw in a group, and one thing was changed was that you add the pectin enzyme before you add all the K-meta and killing off everything, but you add it early on. But I've not had a problem with my peach wine clarifying last year, so I'm not going to worry about that kind of stuff. This is the basic country wine recipe. And then this, at first had number 1, the muscadine batch, and I try to note what I changed from the basic recipe. The batch one was exactly to the basic recipe. The other batches, I changed the amount of yeast, I changed how much fruit I added, and later on I'm going to play with different sugar, raw sugar, brown sugar, the peach wines. And this just has all the notations of what I did, when it quit, like one of them quit bubbling, and then I moved it and it warmed up and started bubbling again. So And here's all the stuff with the corn cob jelly, which was, yeah, 24 half pints. And they were all liquidy. So the pectin in them wasn't, something was wrong with that. It wasn't, I had already tried to reset it a second time with more pectin, and I just boiled the heck out of it before doing the wine thing. I hadn't prettied up the cover of this. That's not so pretty, but it was something I could do without dragging out all my scrapbooking stuff. But this is the finished wines. So like what I did for my daughter. And then the first two, and then like on the back, this is all gone. I made some pomegranate wine, and that was the first ones that we drank. It was so tart, it was so dry that I did back sweeten the whole thing, but I only started out making 1 gallon of it because I did not have enough juice to make more than that. And then here's those labels that I use, these little tags. But this is what I'm doing, is that when they get bottled and they're no longer having to be messed with, they go over here and they go in the front until they're all gone. When this batch is all gone, then that card will get moved to the back of this, and if this fills up, then I start another one. But this one shouldn't ever fill up. It should be always an ongoing thing. I even put some of the jam, what I did with the muscadines, because I made jam with it. So this is what I ended up doing. I did 4 quarts. And I only used 12 cups of sugar because it was already sweetened. It tasted very sweet, and I didn't need to use the whole 21 cups. I did peach butter with the leftover peaches. Nothing's getting thrown away. I made plum jam. I made an apple plum jam. I mixed it because I didn't want to do just applesauce. I was going to call it drunken apple, but I was like, nah, it didn't. The flavor of the alcohol is not coming through once you do the jam process. So I did an apple plum, and then I also did a loose plum jam that I'm using to make vinaigrettes with. So nothing's getting wasted. Everything's getting used multiple times, and I'm really enjoying this. This has been fun. So if you get a chance to just play with this, I'll be more than glad to share this. I got it broken down. I'm shooting for 3.5 gallons using 5-gallon buckets, because you will need that space by the time you add 10.5 quarts of water, 21 cups of sugar, at least 3.5 or more of fruit, and you're going to be stirring in that container too. So you need a 5-gallon bucket in order to get the 3 or 3.5 gallons. I'm going for the 3.5 gallons from now on. But it's simple to do a 1-gallon batch, so don't let that stop you. You shouldn't have to do, and a lot of people are doing 5 gallons and using those big glass carboys. Oh, someone's here. Big glass carboys, but I'm using the plastic ones because that's just easier for me to use. As it is, I pulled another part of my back doing a lot of moving around in furniture yesterday, so I've got to be careful with what I use, and using glass is just, yeah, I'm probably going to break them and ruin a whole batch and make a big old mess, so I'm making a mess as it is with the plastic. But if you get a chance, this has been really fun. I've been really enjoying it. I'm learning the terminology so I don't sound so ignorant, but I'm still very much a noob to this. But, how else do you start something or learn something? You just do it. Thanks for watching.